Good evening, members. Very good. Please be seated. Well, good evening, members, and welcome to the July Council meeting for Working. First of all, Andy, could I ask, are there any apologies for this evening?
Yes, Mr Mayor, I have apologies from Councillor Bray, Councillor Hillier-Simons, Councillor Lee and Councillor Munro.
Thank you very much. Are there any others from the floor? There being none. Thank you very much. And next item, members, is the minutes of the previous meeting, which is on page 11 to 26 in your agenda. I have read them myself. Beth's waving. Beth.
Just to prove that I'm awake. On a matter of accuracy on the minutes, Mr Mayor, if I may, on page 15, the first line at the top of the page says, following the current leader of the council's decision to step down from the role, that actually wasn't part of the council meeting, and so it shouldn't really be recorded in the minutes. Well, the previous leader of the council did not step down at the council meeting, something that happened outside of the council meeting, either by election or by resignation. So it shouldn't be recorded as part of these minutes.
Okay, I'll note that and take that. Thank you. Is there any other points on the minutes? I have read them myself. I think they need to be correct. Without corrections. Thank you very much, members. Those in favour, please show. That's carried. Thank you very much indeed. Declarations of interest. Do we have any declarations of interest on the items which are on the agenda this evening? There being none showing. That's a nil. Okay, thank you very much for that. Public question time. We have 3 questions this evening, and can I just remind the questioners that supplementaries must relate to the answer given. If you don't have to do a supplementary, of course, if you want to, that has to relate. So thank you very much. So I think first of all, it's on the agenda is David here. Is David here? Oh, I should have seen you there, David. Not for the minutes of the meeting, but I'd love to know who your shirt shop is. Would you like to take
Can I ask the question standing in my name, please?
And that is for... I'm going to take that. Chris.
Good evening, Chris. Thank you, Mr Mayor. The annual roads resurfacing budget for the whole of the borough is £2.4 million per year. Regarding road schemes in Portland Ward in Early, in 2015-16, £32,000 was spent resurfacing the Rushy Way Gypsy Lane Junction, and in 2016-17, £16,600 was spent resurfacing Melwood Way.
Thank you. That's supplementary, David.
Yes. Could you tell me how
Can you use a microphone?
Could you tell me how it is decided which road should be resurfaced? And also, more than just Mowbray Way has been done this year.
Yes, well, we don't divide the roads programme on a ward-by-ward basis, because that will be contrary to effective repairs. We follow the Highways Asset Management, which is promoted by the government and adopted by Wakingham's executive in 2016. So the roads treated are done so where the roads are most in need. So it doesn't relate to a particular ward. So we aim for a consistent level of servicing our roads throughout the entire borough.
Thank you very much. And I think we now have another one of our experienced campaigners, Chris Singleton.
Thank you, Rob. I'd like to ask the questions of Sam in my name, please.
That's David here, I guess. Chris again. This is on Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chris, for your question. Nice to see you in the chamber again. It's a very interesting question, and sorry, this reply is going to be a little detailed. Whilst housing delivery is progressing in both the North and South Wokingham SDLs, house occupations currently stand at around 28% in the North Wokingham SDL and 15% in the South Wokingham SDL. The town centre regeneration is in its very early stages, with some applications still awaiting submission. Therefore, at the moment, there is no significant additional pressure on the network as a result of those developments. The Council owns and operates a Wokingham Strategic Transport Model, WSTM, which has been validated in accordance with the Department for Transport's guidance. This allows us to assess aspects of the highway for chosen forecast years, which include 2019 and 2026. And for each forecast year, they can be reviewed against no development, which is the base year plus growth, and development with infrastructure, which is the base year plus growth and planned infrastructure. This assists us in understanding what the network background growth is and what the development-related growth is, so it separates the two. It should be noted that the core strategy includes what are called transport interventions, which are really like triggers. So when you've built a certain number of houses, it's then necessary to build a road in the same way as we do for schools, for example. And that is assessed through the use of the WSTM. And the WSTM was secured and found to be sound through an examination in public. During the delivery of the core strategy, it's inevitable that there will be some pain prior to the infrastructure gain. The Council, as you'll remember, is focused on infrastructure delivery and is progressing on time with the current programme, which when completed will provide network improvements and resilience. There's not always an option for an interim scheme to be considered prior to the delivery of the strategic infrastructure, which of course ends in 2026. And where an interim scheme may be considered, for example the Holt Road junction with Reading Road, or the junction between London Road and Binfield Road, Brances Lane and Priest Avenue, the option is not always possible or advisable due to negative associated effects that it produces. Interim junction improvements in these locations would encourage increased traffic movements in areas where this should not be encouraged, for example residential and school areas. It also diverts a lot of Section 106 funds from the infrastructure projects and result in abortive works, which often requiring the removal of trees and landscaping, which would not be required once the strategic infrastructure is delivered. Rather than trying to provide a lengthy range of data within this short response, fairly short response, we should be happy to discuss, I would be happy to discuss this and the specific areas you mention in a separate meeting and make the main points of the meeting available on the Council's website. And please say also that there is to be a series of information sessions for ward members and town and parish council, which will take place in the autumn. These will cover traffic modelling, civil parking enforcement and our emerging highway strategy. Thank you.
Do you,
Yes, please.
could you possibly have a supplementary to that?
Thanks very much, Chris. I sympathise with you because actually there's been a history here, and it is actually, it has come up before, as Andy Aldrich knows, because it came up at one of the residents' meetings. And my concern really is, leading up to those road figures, how bad is it going to get? And with that, I would reflect in what is actually going to happen to the town and the regeneration. I'm really concerned that we are seeing the difficulty in driving through the town, both the visitors to the town itself and those that want to get past it, and I'm concerned that we're actually going to stop people coming here. And I just wonder, as a supplementary to this, I don't expect you to answer this now, but is whether we could have any figures available for what is happening to footfall. And I think this needs to be relative. What's happening in Bracknell? What's happening in Reading? Footfall in the town? Because I'm really worried that in actual fact we may fall behind with market share.
Okay, Chris, is that the supplementary?
That's the supplementary. What is happening to footfall? It's taking that part of my question which relates to regeneration.
Oh, thank you. Chris?
But before going on, I'd just like to comment. Thanks very much, Chris. I do appreciate that. And yes, I would like to come and chat with you about it because I appreciate it. It is pretty detailed.
Thank you, Chris. And the other.
Okay, thank you. Well, obviously, I don't know what the footfall is in Bracknell nor Reading, but I think those are figures that I won't, because it's actually David Lee's responsibility, and Philip Murphy as well. So I'm sure they'll be able to supply you with the data you are asking for.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we have Annabelle Yoxall in the house. Do we?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Would you like to ask your question then?
Yes, please, thank you. It is welcoming to hear that the leader of the council is committed to standing up for victims of domestic abuse in our community. My question is on behalf of those who have suffered historic abuse, those who are currently in abusive and controlling relationships, and for the perpetrators of the abuse. For the many who have experienced abuse, there will be a range of strong emotions attached to it. They may also feel isolated and that they have no voice. What will the League be implementing to encourage those who are afraid, who feel shame and who carry guilt to step forward and seek the help they so desperately need?
Thank you very much. I think it's Charlotte.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mrs. Yoxall, for your very important question. By publicly championing this agenda, I'm tackling the very notion that any victim should feel isolated, shame or guilt. By talking publicly about this priority, I'm encouraging anyone who should need support to be brave and ask for it. Earlier this year, the Community Safety Partnership approved the refreshed domestic violence and abuse strategy that sets out the strategic aims and objectives for the next 3 years. This strategy has 3 main areas of focus. There's a prevention, provision and risk reduction. The focus on prevention has the following aims. 1, increase the understanding of coercive control and hidden abuse across the workforce in order to help early identification so that we can support and any support can be offered. 2, to empower the community to seek support, to know where to ask for help and to demystify what the process for asking for help is. And thirdly, to work with schools and early education settings to support young people to develop an understanding of healthy and safe relationships to prevent future domestic abuse. There are a range of services that the Council commissions and intends to commission to support residents who are or have experienced domestic abuse and to support and enable perpetrators of abuse to change their abusive behaviour. In addition, I intend to make sure that every elected member and officer of this Council understands the serious consequences that domestic abuse has and recognises their individual responsibility to tackle this blight in our community.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hawken-Taylor. Do you have a supplementary, Albert?
No, I don't, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're happy? Fine. Okay, well that's the end of the question time. Those who have asked questions are, of course, allowed to leave. Unless it's on the joyous occasion to stay, but I'm very happy to go. Thank you very much for coming. Nice to see you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, members. Next item is petitions. Do we have any petitions?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Keith. Good evening.
My name is Kenneth Lowe.
And you're presenting the petition?
I'm presenting the petition on behalf...
1 minute, sir. You have 1 minute.
Thank you. On behalf of the Rose Street Residents Society. The Rose Street Residents Society petition is to inform the Council that we believe that Rose Street is no longer fit for purpose as part of a bus route. The new buses operated by Reading Buses are too large. They are larger than the first bus service that they replaced, so these buses have difficulty entering from Broad Street and exiting into Wiltshire Road. The angled entry into the narrow end of Rose Street means that the buses are inches away from the curb with their large wing mirrors overhanging the pavement. We have observed that occasionally some buses go over the curb when entering the narrows and leaving to exit into Wiltshire Road. This places mums with buggies and toddlers and those disabled people using mobility scooters in danger. We contend that Rectory Road, which is used as an alternative route when Broad Street is closed, should be the bus route of choice. It is already a bus route and is used by Courtney buses. We are grateful for the consultations we've had with our ward councillors and Mark Ashwell. We have photographic evidence of the problems which we'd be happy to submit to the council. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Have you got a hand petition in? Have you got it?
I've got it here.
Hand it over to Magnet to take a copy.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, sir. Now to Mayor's announcements. Oh, there's another one. Mr. Baker. Councillor Baker. Sorry about that, Keith. Please present.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a paper petition here with 40 signatures, but it goes with an e-petition of 128 signatures. I think the simplest way is to just read what the e-petition says on the website. We, the undersigned, petition Wokingham Borough Council to install suitable height barriers in all council car parks that do not have them in order to stop illegal incursions by travellers and others. Woodley Conservatives, on behalf of Woodley residents, are becoming increasingly alarmed at the ease of access travellers have to council car parks and the lengthy legal process to remove them. In the last 6 months, they have experienced this twice in the Crockenwell Road and Lytham Road car parks, and I've been notified that it's happened again in the private car park in Woodley this evening. Residents feel extremely intimidated by the travellers and avoid not only the area, but Woodley itself. It has a large knock-on effect to shops, as well with an increase in dubious activities and drop in their takings, as residents take their businesses elsewhere. But it's not only Woodley shops that suffer. The council loses significant income as the car park becomes unusable. It does not stop there, as the lengthy legal process and the clean-up costs add to the overall cost of these incursions. The installation of height barriers is a simple task with minimal costs involved. Those costs will soon be repaid through car park income and the removal of legal and clean-up costs. Whilst we recognise this measure cannot guarantee incursions will not happen in the future, they will act as a deterrent. And I would just like to add a thank you to the council for installing height barriers in the Lytham Road car park, but this petition is actually to extend that to all council car parks. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Keith. Unless you want to hand that in, I'm probably. Thank you very, very much. Okay, now we get to the mayor's announcements. Before I just update you with a few things we've been doing, I just thought it was appropriate just to note that this is Andy Colvin's last meeting, as he leaves us in August. And by the time we join in September, he will be gone. Andy, of course, came here as the Director of Children's Services back in 2009. And I will remember the day he came for the interview on the Personnel Board, because I chaired it. So it is my fault he's here. It seems that was 8 years ago, amazing. I was also the lead member for Children's Services and worked with him and his team to resolve what was a critical problem with Children's Services at the time. It's to our and his credit and his team that we escaped Ofsted's bad books in record time, which is, I think, I think it was just 19 months, which is quite a record. But they were tough days, and working very closely with a senior officer in such difficulties, you do get to know that person. We got so good, Warwick University even asked us to go there and tell them how we got out of difficulties so quickly. And I thought that was a great credit to everybody involved. I would just have to say I think Birmingham is their gain and our loss. But we wish you well, Andy, and thanks for all you've done, certainly from me and on behalf of Rosslyn Borough Council, so well done.
Thank you very much.
I won't tell you about his saxophone playing, it's another story. It's a short story, you haven't learned yet? No. Oh. It's a funny story. Officially, we have, as you know, we had a book of condolence following the dreadful events in Manchester. We actually had many hundreds of signatures in that book, and I was very proud of that. We have actually now contacted Andy Burnham, who is the elected mayor of Manchester. We've told him that this book is on its way, and it has actually now left a special delivery on its way, and they say they will find a special place to display. So I think that's something on behalf of the people here, the people of Manchester, and I'm rather proud we did that. I suspect we'll get a letter of thanks, and if we do, I'll certainly report that back to you. One or two members have asked about where is the mayor's picture this year, and the boards with the names on. I can just say there's been some delay, some of it caused by the changeover in the mayor's secretaries, some of it caused by other technical difficulties. We are on the case, and they will shortly be resolved. I also promised to just confirm charities at this meeting, and I'm just reconfirming now that what I said at the time, that I'm certainly going to devote some of the money we can raise at charity to cancer care in the Royal Berks Hospital, because that is the, I hate this further, but it is the default hospital for cancer sufferers in Woking. And I think it's right we support the brilliant work they do. We are also setting up, I'm actually setting up a new charity called Cancer Champions, and that will be set up to support those in Woking leaving hospital, because the period after coming out of hospital after serious surgery is a very difficult period of time, and we don't really have things like district nurses anymore to support them, so we are actually looking at setting up a supportive charity to do that. So more details later, but that's my plan. And finally, what we've been doing, John and I, well, John's been very supportive. He's enjoying himself, going well. We've been to a whole number of fates. In fact, I'm almost fated out, really. It's just amazing some of the effort, some of our people, some of our volunteers, some of our parish councils put into the series of summer fates. And I have been absolutely amazed at some of them. Whilst I shouldn't really name them, because there's been so many of them, but I was particularly enthralled with the one in Woodley, which is a really serious event. A fantastic fete, thousands of people there. And we've also had very good ones in Finch Hampstead and Pembroke. So that's what we've been doing, but you have a list of all the appointments and all the issues we've been doing. The other thing, I was a guest at the retirement of the head teacher of Holt School, Suzanne Richards, who's been a brilliant head teacher at Holt, done a great job for the school and the borough, and it was a privilege to be there. At a special event. So well done, Suzanne. So many other things, and I won't bore you with them. but they're on the list, and if anybody's interested in any of them, we're very happy to talk to them. Thank you very much. Okay, now we get to the real business, and that is the Localism Act Pay Policy Statement. That's on page 27 of your agenda. And if you'd like to go to that, and then I'm going to ask now for a proposer of item 24. Could we have one, please? Who's proposing? Oliver, would you like to propose? And do you have a second? Okay, right. Who's the seconder? Charles. Oh, okay, would you like to speak now, Oliver?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a statutory annual statement that has been supported by the Personnel Board. It sets out the framework for pay, which includes posts designated as chief officers and other employees. It covers nationally negotiated increases, which usually follow the public sector pay cap, which has been 1% increase per annum in recent years, apart from the lowest paid who have received some additional enhancements. The Chief Officer's pay has received no percentage uplift over recent years. This also covers salary bands, appointments, additional payments and redundancies. The table on the front shows that the highest paid remains static and the lowest paid has had the highest increase. The rate increase for lowest and median is higher than 1%, largely because of incremental progressions. The gearing of highest paid to lowest paid has reduced by 3% in each of the last 2 years because the highest paid salary has remained static. This means that the differential between highest and lowest paid has reduced. Therefore, the recommendation is that the Council approve the attached policy pay statement for 2017-2018 for publication on the Council's website in accordance with the Localism Act 2011.
Thank you very much. John, do you want to speak now? Or?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll reserve my right. Thank you.
Does anybody else wish to speak on this item? Lindsay, Clive. Anybody else? Lindsay, Clive. Okay. Lindsay.
Short comment. The Lib Dem Group believes that there should be realistic pay rises for our officers and support the pay review under the National Joint Council. The figures are currently based on a 1% pay cap, however there is increasing pressure to relax this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The government's austerity measures have been ongoing for 7 to 8 years, since the Labour Party and the bankers crashed the economy and created the mess that subsequent governments have had to clear up. It's time that public sector employees, NHS staff, the police, fire, ambulance services, teachers and local authority workers were properly paid. They should not have to continually suffer because of the tragic mistakes of the last Labour government and the bankers.
Thank you very much. Anybody else wishes to speak? I would like to go to the second.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to recommend this pay policy statement, but in recognition of what Councillor Jones has said, obviously we have been in severe austerity for the last several years, but should the national government recognise that we would be relaxing that, and there has been some noise in recent weeks about that, then we would, of course, listen to them and be then taking national government, setting their figures and asking for our unions to negotiate with councils following that and bring something back to the council in due course.
Thank you very much. Do you wish to sum over?
I have nothing.
You have the right.
No, I have nothing to add.
Nothing to add. Thank you very much. Okay, members. In that case, on the agenda item, can I see members showing support of the policy? Please show. That's carried. Thank you very much. Okay, was there any, I'm being corrected by Mark, was there anybody against? And is there any abstentions? There was one. I do apologise, Andy. What do you do? Right, moving on. Item 25, complaint, local government ombudsman. Ombudsman, I didn't hear me say that. And that's on page 37 of the agenda. And I think
sorry, Mr. Mayor, we can't hear you.
I'm sorry, I switched off my little doodly. Can you hear me now? Loud and clear. I'll reintroduce this item. Then we're on page 37. This is the complaint of the local government ombudsman report. On page 37. And I'm asking for a proposer now from the floor. We have one, Julian. Do you have a second, Julian? You do. Julian, would you like to speak? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On behalf of this authority, I wish to offer our apologies to this lady and her daughter for the results of our shortcomings. The department was very concerned about the service failures highlighted in the LGO report and the effects upon this lady and her family. The department accepts fully that no review had been arranged before the safeguarding alert was closed and that no formal review had taken place due to the malfunction of the council's software. Had this taken place, the concerns regarding Mrs X's low weight and under-stimulation could have been highlighted. Since the concerns were raised, the council has reviewed its contract monitoring and quality assurance systems, including funding clinical staff to support providers with managing complex and high-risk care needs. A manual system was implemented to capture all annual reviews until the new system was introduced in the autumn. I can also report that there have been no further concerns regarding this provider since February 2015, but we will continue to monitor that, and we now believe that we have procedures in place to ensure that this does not happen again. And once again, I apologise on behalf of this authority.
Thank you, Julian. Is the second wish to speak for the whole? No, I've nothing to add. Sorry? Nothing to add?
I have nothing to add.
Thank you, Richard. Does anybody else want to speak on this item? We have two. We have Ian and Andy. And Lindsay. Okay. We'll start at the top of the table, so I'll be in fit up for me.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is an interesting report covering a fairly shoddy episode. I'll distill this down to three problems which the executive member has only partly acknowledged properly, but I do note his apologies. Firstly, there is a duty to make arrangements to put in place a contract with a provider for care. WBC did do that. Then, however, WBC failed to carry out the follow-up elements which are to have oversight of delivery and to check that the consequences of the plan are working as expected. Since WBC failed both on this provider and this particular plan, how can we be sure that WBC is not failing on others where a concerned and dutiful relative is not paying such careful attention and bringing the matter to WBC? Secondly, WBC relied upon the computer system to alert them to the need to carry out annual reviews of arrangements. The process failed because of an IT malfunction when transferring data from an old to new software. Standard practice in the IT industry is that when carrying out a data porting exercise, it is essential to carry out a data validation exercise as part of it to ensure that data has been transferred and in a form that the new software can use. Namely, it does what it is supposed to do and does not do what it is not supposed to do. You do not simply rely upon an assumption that it will be all right on the night, we will muddle our way through. You check. Clearly, WBC failed to check. Since they did not get this right, what faith can we have in the much bigger 21st century project and its heavier reliance upon computing upgrades?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Andy.
Thank you. Anybody who's read this report will be, and who's also been a carer, will be very shocked, as I was, to read how easy it is for somebody who's vulnerable to fall between the cracks of the care we should be providing. And I know it's very moving in some ways, and it's a very difficult read. I would just like to focus on the thing which Ian mentioned, which is this idea of a computer software failure. And I work with IT all day, every day. Very rarely does software just fail. Would you be able to give us the details of exactly what happened? Because it happened for one person, it can happen again. And it may be that somebody else's relatives weren't quite as assertive as this lady's daughter. I think we need assurance that it was just the one occasion that this happened. I don't think it was computer software failure. I think it's human error, and we need to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Thank you, Andy. I think it's
Yes, thank you.
Right.
I'm sure that many here tonight will be distressed at what happened to Mrs X over a considerable period from 2010 to 13 at Murdoch House. To suffer severe malnourishment in the 21st century is truly appalling and should not be allowed to happen again. On pages 45, 46 and 54 in the agenda of the Ombudsman report, there is a clear indication that the Council was at fault. In summary, it says the Council was at fault for not having a proper review of placement and no annual review. In particular, they did not review when Mrs A made a complaint in 2012 and closed the case without ensuring care was fit for purpose. We are also of significant concern is that the report of the local government ombudsman is dated 29th of November 2016. So why has it taken over 7 months for the report to come to full council? I trust there is a good valid reason why this has been delayed. We also hope that all recommendations made on page 44 have been fully adhered and completed in good time. Thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay. Now, I guess you'd like to respond. Richard, you don't want to speak at all? Is the seconder?
I'll leave it to
So leave it to you. Julian, so could I now ask you to wrap up and respond to the...
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Dealing with the questions as they arose, Councillor Peter is right. There was a detailed software issue. This case was the only case that was missed from the move from one system to another. When it was highlighted to me at 4 o'clock on the Saturday, we alerted the safeguarding team, and the safeguarding team went out straight away, but that's no excuse for missing it the first time around. What we did on the Monday was actually review to see whether there are any other cases that we missed, and there weren't. With regard to Andy's point, Andy Poy's point about the merge, yes, it was probably down to human error. We just know that for one reason or another the data went across and this one case didn't merge across. That we have put in place now double checks to make sure that on future systems, if that happens again, then we'll pick that up. With regard to Lindsay's view on the detailed report from the Ombudsman and why it's taken so long to come to this council, the report was given to us in draft. We then have to raise a number of factual points about that. It goes back to the Ombudsman and then it gets released. So there was no detail or repression of that review on our part. And as I say, I have apologised to Mrs X's daughter on a number of occasions. We know where we went wrong. We fully accept that we didn't manage it correctly, and once again I apologise on behalf of this apology.
Thank you, Julian, for that very fulsome explanation. Right, thank you very much, members. So we are asked to note this particular report. So could I ask for those in favour of noting this report, please so. Thank you very much. Are there any against? And are there any abstentions? There being none, that is carried. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, now we now have changes to the Constitution. That follows on page 57 in your agenda. And I think do we have a proposer here? Hello, Paul. Would you like to introduce item on page 57 again? Thank you.
Council, I'd like to draw your attention to a number of changes to the Constitution that are proposed. The first is in response to the Independent Remuneration Panel review that was conducted. The conclusion of that review was that there would be no significant change to the process as it stands. The only change that is proposed is that if the committee wish, They do not have to go through a full process of interview of councillors and review every year if they decide that there is no substantive change and they just wish to continue with the review, the status quo. But that's for the committee to decide, not for us. The next one is regarding the quorum and chairmanship of the Health and Wellbeing Board. This is to allow a temporary chairman in the case where the chairman and current vice chairman are not present. The next is related to changes on the planning of buildings of a traditional character made on the recommendation of the Planning Committee. And the final is regarding the process for considering code of conduct complaints. This was considered by the Standards Board. They reviewed a number of items and came forward with a proposal around guidelines on the initial assessment by the monitoring officer. Previously there were no guidelines, and now there are a set of guidelines agreed. All of these were unanimously agreed by the Constitutional Review Committee at its last meeting, and I commend them to Council.
Thank you, Paul. I think to ask you actually to have a second. Pauline. Okay. Thank you very much, Paul. Pauline, do you wish to speak now or reserve your right? Thank you very much. Are there any other members who would like to speak? Lindsay, Gary? Lindsay, Gary? No, and Charlotte. Okay, well, I'll start with Lindsay, I think.
Thank you. I have raised a number of concerns about the Standards Committee with the leader of the Council prior to this meeting, so she is aware of these concerns. The Lib Dem Group has lost confidence in how the Code of Conduct issue for members, section 9114 of the Constitution, has been dealt with by said committee. We believe that more independent members should be involved in any Code of Conduct complaint, plus they should have voting rights unlike at present. The current arrangement is no longer acceptable because it is too politicised. In addition, we believe all at-fault decisions of any complaint should be published on the Council's website. We therefore have to indicate that we shall be voting against this agenda item, although some of the proposals relating to other areas of the Constitution within the agenda may well be acceptable. We are currently reviewing our future involvement in this area.
Thank you very much. Gary. Good evening, Gary.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. My question or comment or question relates to the independent remuneration panel. Paul did give an explanation, but I didn't quite get to grips with what he was trying to say. I mean, the wording in the document would be, should there have been little or no change during the year, the independent remuneration panel may decide not to undertake a full review of any review of the scheme of members' allowances. It raises two issues. I mean, that seems a very complicated way of saying something that's very simple. And also, I would like to know, has the remuneration panel approved these actual words going into the Constitution?
Thank you very much, Gary. And Charlotte.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to speak with regards to the recommendation number 4 of the agenda with regards to point 9.1.4 of the Code of Conduct in reference to Councillor Ferris's points. The Standards Committee is properly constituted, and those appointments I have made I have absolute confidence in. The committee does important work upholding the important standards of public office and the Council's Code of Conduct. If the Liberal Democrat group seeks to withdraw its engagement with the committee, this would be an unfortunate reflection on the value they appear to attach to maintaining high standards of public office. But it would not be allowed to derail the operation of the committee. It would merely weaken the cross-party approach to this important activity that the Council has managed this thus far.
Thank you very much. Right then. Now, the second one hasn't been spoken. Pete. Sorry, Pete.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I fully support all the recommendations here. I was just a little bit disappointed in terms of the amendments to the operation of the Standards Board. A recent issue with a case in the Standards Board related to what I'll call ownership of the complaint, and it was very confusing who owned that complaint, and the importance of that is whoever owns the complaint can make it public or not. So can I make a request, and I'll follow it up in writing, Paul, that the Constitutional Review Working Group review the point I'm making. You are personally fully aware of the point, to make that clearer so that anybody who is brought up to the Standards Committee is fully aware of what they can do and what they can't do. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Fine, now Pauline, is there anybody else who wants to speak on this item? There being Pauline as a seconder, would you like to speak?
Sorry, put my back so I get dodgy at standing up. Yeah, I'd just like to reiterate what Paul said and just point out one thing, that this policy working group is actually a cross-party group, and the support for these items was unanimous. So we're now hearing in public, where the cameras are on, objections to things that were not made in the vote in the committee. So I'm a bit disappointed. It seems very little point having a cross-party committee if people say nothing in the committee, vote in favour of the recommendations, and then sit here and complain about them afterwards.
Very much. Now, if I could ask Paul to sum that all up.
Let me try and address some of the issues raised.
Please.
Addressing Gary's question first. Sorry if my explanation was not clear. I was trying to be as concise as I possibly could without going on at length. This really puts the power in the hands of the Remuneration Committee and is in line with their discussions and their points. The exact wording has not been put to them, but the spirit of what they requested is within this wording. It allows them, if they wish, to say, and I will give an example rather than a recommendation, that they might say that the raise in councillors' allowances should be in line with the rise in council staff pay. And they might set that 1 year. The following year, if there were no changes to the executive, no changes to the role of a councillor, they might decide that they don't need to hold a full review that time. They might allow it to go forward as was. It's up to them to decide that they do wish to do that, so they have to meet to decide that each year. If they don't wish to go ahead, it saves them having to hold a series of meetings, interviewing councillors to ask them exactly the same questions as they asked them last year, where they should get exactly the same answers on the basis that nothing's actually changed. In terms of Keith's point around the Standards Committee and the considerations around naming or otherwise of the owner of the report, of the complaint, that would need to come from Standards, so I'd request that he writes to the Standards Committee and ask them to review it. The Constitutional Review Committee only considers the matters once they've been considered by their relevant body. So it has to come from them as a recommendation, and we would then look at it and make sure it's enacted into the Constitution.